Okay, so Jojo, great to have you back on the show. So much going on. So let's just jump right into it. Are you as worried as so many Americans are about the Supreme Court's ruling, basically giving presidents immunity for any official acts? I mean, because what they just did, in essence, is they've given the presidential power, not just over the DOJ, but technically over everything, making the president a king, a dictator, a monarch, a supreme leader, a Führer, basically completely above the law. Tell me, what's your concerns?
Well, first of all, thanks for having me back on. Sorry about we had a little snafu with my Wi-Fi this summer and my kids are home and I'm going to blame them for everything. Just kidding, but thanks for having me back. So excited to talk to you. Not about this really, because this is terrible, but it is really something to know that a Supreme Court justice, which is Sonia Sotomayor, said, "With fear for our democracy, I dissent." In this case, in this ruling, the ruling that essentially, when you really look at it, because it's complicated and it took a minute for all of us to sort of download what it was that they said, they basically did. They gave presidents complete immunity over their Department of Justice. That meant that the crimes that Donald Trump committed with what's-his-face pantsless guy, Eastman or whatever, he's immune from prosecution for those. They can basically slap an official act sticker on anything, and it's fine. So he could shoot someone in the middle of Fifth Avenue, and as long as he said, well, it was an official act of my presidency, that's it. He's fine. And it's insane. It's a slippery slope. It's terrifying. We don't live in a monarchy. And the Supreme Court of the United States of America has essentially rewarded Donald Trump with a kingship for their seats.
You know, one of the bigger problems that we have as a result of this is in America, our legal system, there is something called a presumption of innocence. And I believe that that's possibly the most fundamental thing that a person can have when you get involved with the system, right? No longer is it, I have to prove my innocence, they have to prove your guilt. Here, similarly, there is now a presumption of immunity. And that's the part that's really difficult. Just imagine now what Jack Smith is going to have to go through. And who's making the determination that this is or is not an official presidential act? What happens hypothetically with the Mar-a-Lago documents case? What happens with, of course, the January 6th case? For example, let's go back to the Mar-a-Lago documents case. When he took the documents, he was president of the United States. They will now argue that the taking of those documents was just because he was president at the time that he took them. And therefore, almost like a fruits of the poisonous tree, you cannot prosecute him, even though he refused to return them, even though they filed false affidavits claiming everything was returned back, because it was a presidential act that got the documents from DC, from the White House, to Mar-a-Lago. It's not even a slippery slope. This is like a 90-degree drop on Death Canyon Mountain, and you're only skiing with a half of a broken ski.
Right. I mean, when they even took up this case, I was laughing because it was already decided by the lower courts. And I was like, oh, sure, I have presidential immunity from everything. I can plot a coup. I have presidential immunity. I can steal documents. I have presidential immunity. I could give Kim Jong-un a hand job. I have presidential immunity. Like, I thought it was hysterically funny that that they would even entertain this idea. And now we're here. And you're right. Who does decide that? Because it's going to be up to Chutkin. And then she says, this is not a presidential act. Then where's it going to go? It's going to go back to the Supreme Court, right? And this is going to happen in perpetuity, essentially, over every single thing he's ever done. And if stealing our national security secrets and putting them in your chandelier shitter is a presidential act, then everything is a presidential act. And then you could do whatever you want. And most people probably wouldn't take advantage of that. But Donald J. Trump, as you know better than anybody, would.
Yeah, absolutely. And, you know, I want to sort of quote something from Justice Roberts, right? And in the decision, he wrote, "The president is not above the law." Okay, way to go, right? I mean, he is the conservative majority. But he also continues and says, "But Congress may not criminalize the president's conduct in carrying out the responsibilities of the executive branch under the Constitution." Now, again, we can all sit here, scratch our heads, and try to figure out, how is it taking top secret documents from DC and showing them to an Australian billionaire at Mar-a-Lago, or waving them around to a bunch of reporters? How is any of that, when you're not the president of the United States? In fact, he wasn't the president at that point in time for 2 years. How can that possibly ever, under any rational basis, be construed as a presidential act? I don't understand it. And how in the world can you then hold somebody accountable for doing something if, in fact, that you have a presumption of immunity and presidential immunity for anything that you do? I'm so lost in this decision that I'm more concerned about the Supreme Court than I am even about Donald Trump.
Well, it's part and parcel of like the same terrible octopus, really. So these are all like tentacles of the same creature. But I mean, they're off the rails, obviously. But to also strip Congress of any sort of check on the executive, when you're telling the executive they can do whatever they want, is essentially mirroring what the Supreme Court has, which is that Congress is supposed to be a check on them, but there isn't really a check on them that we can put into effect, because you have to do all these other things and they don't have their own ethics, even though they say they do. They don't. I mean, I'm terrified about what Donald Trump will do once in office, because this is a person who's already believed that he's above the law, but now he's got the Supreme Court telling him that he's above the law, and that anything he does, they'll essentially say it's fine. And they've removed the mechanism where Congress could have any checks or balances on him. So we don't have co-equal branches of government. And then you put a lifelong criminal like Trump in there. He's never going to leave. Why would he ever leave? And he's going to do whatever he wants openly. Why wouldn't he?
And he is, I'll tell you something, where the Supreme Court ruled that for core presidential activity, Trump has, because this was a win for Trump. I hear you listen to a lot of the pundits and they're like, well, it's not as big a win as whatever. Any win in this area is a win. So when the Supreme Court ruled that for core presidential activity, Trump has absolute immunity, and that's the absolute immunity that he is seeking. The majority said that Trump's conversation, as an example, let's take this instead now to the Atlanta, Georgia case, to the Fani Willis case, which is a fucking mess in and of itself because of this inappropriate relationship that she had with the prosecutor. The majority said that Trump's conversations with the Justice Department, his efforts to try to get officials like Brad Raffensperger on board with his effort to overturn the election, are now covered by absolute immunity. I'm saying to myself, again, what am I missing here? And I know that I'm not. My hope, and I spoke to some of Biden's people yesterday, my hope is that they use this as a rallying cry to say, all right, let me first start, Jojo from Jersey. Let me start with the simple fact that you're a woman. And as a result of this Supreme Court, in the overturning of the Dobbs decision, the Roe versus Wade 50-year stare decisis is no longer in effect. And we're seeing all sorts of crazy shit as a direct result. You're not only seeing women's rights being taken away, but healthcare is basically being stripped from women. IVF now, DNCs are problematic. Everything, right, is all problematic. Mifepristone is now problematic. Okay. Now couple with that the fact that you're losing other rights here in America, including a right to hold a president responsible for criminal acts, basically stating that there are people that are above the law. My point is that we're watching the Supreme Court make decisions that go far beyond just an individual and an individual's belief. It's now affecting the future of this country, future generations of our democratic republic, and so on. And this is not a joke, because they will continue to strip more and more rights away from Americans. We also know that the Dobbs decision fucked up a case which I was relying on in my action against the United States government, Bill Barr, the DOJ, BOP, for an unconstitutional remand that was orchestrated by Trump. So when I tell people, listen to what he's telling you that he's going to do, because he's done it before, may not have gotten everything he wanted out of it, but now he's got more people there who are as crazy as he, and they will start locking people up just because he wants to, because they're critics, because they irk him.
Yeah.
Where do you not turn around as a woman, or the actions that they're taking against Black people, right? Or Hispanics. And so he wants to literally build encampments. He wants to build internment camps, start doing the most massive roundup and getting people out. Or during the debate, when he made that stupid ass comment about Black jobs. This entire GOP is out of control. And I don't say it because I'm a Democrat. I don't say it because I want Joe Biden to be the president. My fear is if Joe Biden is not reelected, that's going to be the end of our democracy as we know it. So what do we need to do?
Well, as far as the rallying cry goes, 1,000%, this needs to be a rallying cry. If you thought shit was real before this, you need to wake up. I think people need to understand the threat is real. The debate was one of those wake up calls too, where it was like, oh, shit, he could actually win. He could actually be back. And we cannot allow that as a country. This person incited an attack on our Capitol. They beat our Capitol Police with American flags. Like, this person can never be allowed to be returned to the White House ever again. And 1,000% should Joe Biden use this as a rallying cry, because, as you said, it's not hyperbole to say that this would be the end of American democracy. For all the people out there with the constitutional republic, blah, 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 it's a democracy that would be over, because he would certainly not have elections. The guy tried to undo the last election because he lost. He wouldn't have elections. He wouldn't have a democratic process. He would be unchecked, and he would be able to do whatever he wants, including, like you said, rounding up and deporting tens of millions of brown-skinned people, whether or not they were citizens or not. And as a woman, the idea that my 11-year-old daughter now has fewer rights than I did at her age is, first of all, maddening, but also terrifying, but also, again, a rallying cry. And it's not just that they stripped us of our right to have an abortion. There are women in states all over this country, in red states after red state, that are letting a woman nearly die from sepsis before they'll let her have an abortion that will save her life, because the doctors are like, I don't want to go to prison. Doctors in this country will face life in prison for letting a dying woman have abortion care, but the president of the United States could order the assassination of his political rival, slap a sticker of official act on it, and get away with it. And that's upside down, inside out, and backwards. Doctors are criminals, and Donald Trump is going to be a free man. This is this is insanity. And it 1000% has fired me up. And I hope that it fires other people up, because the Supreme Court is now a political arm of the Republican Party. And so we have a political problem, which requires a political solution. And the political solution is to vote blue in such big numbers that we get the trifecta we need to actually expand the court, which is constitutional, or impeach Clarence Thomas and Justice Alito, who would probably retire first, knowing it was coming. But we have the power to reshape that court, and it requires us voting in huge numbers. That's it.
Yeah, let me also say that when they were beating the police officers at the Capitol, it was not with the American flag. It was with the MAGA flag, or the Trump 2020 flag. I mean, that's the crazy part, because what I always saw, that group, what I saw, the protesters, that was a paramilitary army of Donald Trump. They're wearing, I just finished watching 6 seasons of Viking, and it's like 120 episodes. I don't know if you've watched it. It's on Netflix. I happen to like it. It's fantastic. But what you start to see is each specific area, right? Whether from England to France or Norway, they all have their own flag. And when I see that MAGA flag, I'm not seeing it as the GOP. I'm not seeing it as the Oath Keepers or the 1%ers or that. That's fucking Donald Trump's flag. Yeah. Whether it says Trump 2024 or it says MAGA on it. I see that the way I see the Confederate flag. That is a specific subset of the Republican Party. The problem, though, is that MAGA has now infiltrated so much into Congress that they're actually standing behind a guy who wants to destroy our country's Constitution. He wants to rewrite the Constitution. And I'm not saying that, again, to be hyperbolic. I'm repeating his words. Well, that's all I'm doing. I'm repeating his words. So if, and I say this to Republicans, I say this to people who I meet on the street that are constantly trying to get in my face, talking about, Trump 2024. If you want or think that Donald Trump is capable of rewriting the Constitution, and by doing so, that will provide you with any type of a benefit whatsoever, if you think that will provide your children or grandchildren or great-grandchildren or generations to come with any sort of benefit whatsoever, then you should continue to vote for him. But if you value the Constitution, if you value our democratic republic, if you value the rights of women and minorities to coexist and to try to live the American dream, then you really have no choice but to vote for Joe Biden. Hold your nose, pull the lever, and do what you need to do.
Yeah. I mean, there's one candidate, like you said, who would rip up the Constitution, set it on fire, eat it, flush it down the toilet, whatever he would do with it, it would cease to exist. And then you have Joe Biden, who is a lifelong public servant, who's never done anything to make anyone believe that he wants to be a dictator, that he wants to be a king. He wants to be a competent, good-hearted steward of this democracy. But the thing is, too, like you said, to those people who don't understand what it would be like to live under a dictator or under a king, well, let's just use the dictator model. They don't understand what it would be like for them, but they could understand it, because all they would need to do is to look at the people he worships, at the people he idolizes, at his best friends, the people he fell in love with, like Kim Jong-un and Vladimir Putin. Take a look at what's happening in North Korea. Take a look at what's happening in Russia. Is that the kind of world you want for yourselves? More importantly, for your kids and your grandkids? None of that will benefit them. And I think this is less of a partisan issue than a lot of people realize, even the most I want a dictator. Do you want to be a participant in this experiment of ours or not? Do you want to have a voice in shaping our collective reality or not? Because that's the choice before you. You either choose democracy or you choose a dictatorship. The Supreme Court has said, that's ironic, actually. He didn't even need the insurrection. He should have just asked them to begin with. They have said they can be dictators. And what happens to the United States of America under a dictatorship is obviously not what it looks like right now. So this is about voting for your future as a participant in your own reality. And that's what people need to understand. It's not about left or right. It's not about, Republican or Democrat. It's about retaining democracy, protecting it, moving it forward, or the edge of a cliff where it's over. That's it. That's what they need to understand.
The way I always compare Joe Biden to Donald Trump is I consider Joe Biden to be the voice of reason, and then Donald Trump, the voice of treason. Yeah. That's really how I see the distinction between the two of them. But let me ask you this then, Jojo. Why do you think the 5 judges on the supermajority would want to give the president so much power? Now, of course, I'm excluding Amy Coney Barrett here because she was the one out of that majority that was most on the fence. Elevate every morning with Tommy John's second skin underwear, because what you put in your pants can make or break your day. And the luxurious support of second skin guarantees that everything will go smoothly. And we need smooth. So when you wear Tommy John, you're much more comfortable. And when you're more comfortable, you can do everything better. Tommy John's stylish and soft second skin underwear has dozens of comfort innovations, like a supportive contour pouch and breathable, lightweight, moisture-wicking fabric with 4 times the stretch of competing brands. With over 20 million pairs sold and thousands of 5-star reviews, guys everywhere love their Tommy Johns. I mean, that's why Tommy John doesn't have customers. They have fanatics, like this one who raves, the most comfortable boxer briefs ever. There's no downside. Buy 1 pair and you'll never want to wear any other underwear again. I mean, I've been trying different brands of trunks for the past few months while wearing a similar product for the past 3 years. Second Skin is by far the most comfortable I've ever worn, hands down. I mean, that's my opinion, hands down. They are the most comfortable. And I know because they're soft and they hold you right where you need to be. So look, I'm certainly one who wears them. I am one who recommends them. Tommy John is the way that you want to go. Plus, here's another part. Plus, your most valuable assets are always covered with Tommy John's best pair you'll ever wear or its free guarantee. So get 20% off your first order right now at TommyJohn.com/Cohen. Save 20% on second skin at TommyJohn.com/Cohen. That's TommyJohn.com/Cohen. See the site for details. But what do you think that the justices are telling us about the future after this ruling?
Well, I think that the Republican Party, the white, rich male hold on power that has sort of been the way this country has run for many, many generations, understands that they're in the throes of their own extinction, right? Like we are just evolving as the world does and evolving away from that specific set of the population having all the control. And so they have been working on this for quite a while. They've been desperate to make sure that they figure out some other way to manufacture it so that they stay in power. And really that was building the court of their dreams a long time ago, that this has all been underway. And Donald Trump, again, I really do believe was a useful idiot in that entire process. I don't know if they counted on him being as popular as he was, but here we are. It's kind of like Hitler in that way. They underestimated just how popular these people would be. But I think what they're telling us is that their masters, like the Harlan Crows of the world, want to do away with any checks on their power. They want no administrative state. They want to have a monarch they can be the lords in that system where they stay in control, they stay in power, despite what's happening around them. So it's basically tyranny of the minority, but they've made sure that they stay at the top of the pyramid, and the rest of us are stay at the bottom, and they've manufactured it in such a way that they've used the highest court in our country to do it, but they're underestimating the will of the people. That's the thing. All these other countries where this is not just an American problem in terms of populism, in terms of social, in terms of the power, the far right taking power. This is a global problem right now, but this is the United States of America. And I truly believe when Joe Biden always says this, there's nothing beyond our capacity. I believe that people underestimate us, because what we've seen in red state after red state on ballot measures when it comes to abortion is that this isn't about abortion. This isn't about an issue. This is about democracy. And the American people are pretty stubborn, and we like democracy. And I really do believe that whether or not and it is the 6, but even in this case, let's just say the 5 far-right Christo-fascists on the Supreme Court are underestimating that we, the people, are going to get them out of their jobs, or we're going to get a bigger court so that these kinds of rulings can be undone, and then we never have to deal with this again. I mean, we have a president right now, Joe Biden, who could do, right, anything he wanted. Essentially, couldn't he just slap a sticker on arresting Donald Trump and putting the 6 Supreme Court justices in a holding cell until the election? I mean, he could do whatever he wants, according to them.
By the way, he could.
Right, but he doesn't want to. That's the difference, right? He doesn't want to. He never would. He's not even going to pardon his son. And you've got that on one side of the pendulum, and you've got the guy in the party who will do anything they want, and this is the killer too. The Supreme Court struck down Roe because they said that abortion wasn't in the Constitution, because there wasn't a provision for protecting it in the Constitution. Well, somebody please show me where the provision in the Constitution was that said a president can conspire with his attorney general to force the overturning of an election he lost. Where's that in the Constitution?
I don't know. Why don't you show me where in the Constitution that it says that a president can take money for pardons? I mean, it's, right. Let me ask you this then. Do you think the judges on the majority are somehow naive and just don't realize how Trump is going to use all that power to do something tyrannical? Or do you think that they imagine, misguided belief, that they can somehow rein him in when he goes too far? What do you think's going on in their heads?
I think I don't think they're naive. I think that might be part of the calculus, which is hysterical to me, because at this point, if you don't know who Donald Trump is, you're really not paying attention. But we're also talking about Supreme Court justices. Let's just take 2 of them who truly believe they are above the law too. I mean, Clarence Thomas and Samuel Alito shouldn't even have been ruling on this case at all. Clarence Thomas's wife was texting Mark Meadows about the insurrection, about Stop the Steal, about doing something to stop him from actually leaving the White House when he lost. Samuel Alito's wife is flying a flag upside down in support of the Stop the Steal, in support of the insurrection. These 2 guys should have recused themselves. They shouldn't have been on the case at all, but they didn't, because there's no real ethics review, because Justice Roberts doesn't care about his legacy. And because they believe they're above the law. Clarence Thomas's mortgages, his fake nephew's tuition, his fishing trips, and all of that. Samuel Alito's fishing trips and all of that nonsense too. They've accepted money from people who have cases before the court when they're not supposed to. They believe that they are above the law. And I think they probably think, hey, this will be kind of fun. We can just get away with whatever we're doing. We'll retire when Trump takes over. He'll appoint much younger replacements for us. And then whatever line of succession of Supreme Commander Trump's comes next, we'll still be rich, and they'll still be, monarchy or dictators or whatever. And I think that Amy Coney Barrett, and maybe even, to a lesser degree, I mean, shockingly, Kavanaugh has made some slightly more reasonable rulings than the rest of them. But I think that they're just towing the line. She's just towing the line, even though she said in this case, no, I don't agree that that's an official act. She's still along with the 6. And honestly, we have a mechanism in place to expand the court. It's been done in our history before. It's in the Constitution. The next president with the right majorities can do that. And it's okay to do that. We could have as many as we have, districts in this country. We could have 11, right? I mean, I don't know. I'm just saying that's not an impossibility. And it doesn't set a precedent that is outside of the norms. But I think they need to be checked once and for all. And again, the only way to do that is a vote. That's it. And big vote. There's a lot of people in this country who didn't vote or don't vote. They need to understand it's time.
Yeah, I will say this also, that one of the big problems that I think the Supreme Court is missing is when Donald Trump said he wanted to rewrite the Constitution, he continued on by saying that he wants to dismantle our tripartite system of government because it's too hard. For him, he found it too hard to have to work within the confines of the bureaucracy, of the system, of the United States government. He felt that as a president, and he said this as well, that a president is like a king. He should be allowed through executive order to do whatever he wants. So, Supreme Court justices, so federal court judges, here's what I suspect Trump is going to do. And again, this is off of his own words. When he says he wants to dismantle the judiciary and the legislative branches of government and confer all power to himself,
Right.
What happens to the Supreme Court when that occurs? There is no Supreme Court. Now, if he wants to have them basically as a bunch of puppets, trotting them out in their black robes, basically providing decisions that he tells them that he wants, that'll be okay. But other than that, they will have no independent thought. They will not have the ability to write independent decisions on anything because he could get rid of them tomorrow. That's what a king can do. He can unseat anyone. There will not be the Supreme Court judge's lifetime tenure. It's lifetime so long as the king says that it's lifetime. And they're actually working against their own self-interest, if you think about it. And that's why I'm not so sure when I said, do you think that they're somehow naive or just stupid to the fact of what Trump's tyrannical desires are? I'm not so sure. But I want to move on, and I want to ask you this, because it seems clear, at least to me now, that the majority of the High Court wants to remake the United States into a theocracy. They want to return, and we've heard MAGA Mike Johnson say this more than once. He wants to return America to a white, male, Christian-based, anti-democratic autocracy, a theocracy.
Yep.
So what happens then to the rest of us? What happens to women? What happens to Jews? What happens to Muslims? What happens to Hindus? What happens to immigrants? Everyone who is not them. So my real question is, this is factual. This is not Michael Cohen being hyperbolic again or trying to drum up some sort of hate mongering. This is what they're telling you. They want to return America to a white, Christian, nationalist country, despite the fact America was never a white, male, Christian, nationalistic country. So the real question that I have is, I've talked about this, I don't know, hundreds of times, hundreds. Why are we not all out on the streets protesting? Why are we not hearing from more people, women, Jews, Muslims, Hindus, Scientologists, right? I mean, you name it, Buddhists. Why are we not hearing from everybody else and saying, fuck this?
Yeah.
Right? I'm okay with white Christian nationalists. You be you, but let me be me. Right? I'm okay with, Hindus and Muslims and other Jewish sects and so on. I'm okay with all of that. But you be you, let me be me. And I'm just wondering why we are not all joining hands together and protesting.
I mean, like you, I am sounding the alarm every day myself, right? Every day. I get on social media and I do my own podcast and I do my own Substack, and I'm sounding the alarm the same way that you just did, really. It's like, wake up, everybody, because this isn't just about me or about you, Michael. This is about all of us, right? That's what I just think. There's a lot of different factors for why people don't seem to get it. Largely, I think they don't really think it's real, even though the Republicans like Mike Johnson are telling us, even though Project 2025 and the Federalists are telling us there's plans. They're telling us what they'll do. Right now, in the state of Louisiana, it is mandated that the 10 Commandments be posted in every public school classroom. The superintendent in Oklahoma has now mandated that the Bible be included in their classrooms. They're not hiding any of this. They're putting it all out in plain sight. The problem is the American people are constantly inundated with so much shit. As Steve Bannon so articulately said, right? They are flooding the zone with shit. So they don't know which end is up, what's true, what's not true, so much so that they disengage, they pull away, and they just put their hands over their eyes, and it's fine. Everything's fine. This is fine, like from Animal House. But that's why we have the responsibility of continuously showing them, here's what they're going to do. Here's what it's going to look like for you. You don't think this is going to impact you? Do you have a gay relative? Do you have a disabled relative? Do you have or do you care about anybody who is brown skinned, whether or not they were born here? Are you an immigrant? Are you the child of an immigrant? This impacts everyone. Are you Jewish? Are you Muslim? And all of this infighting too, that's been stoked and poked and prodded by bad actors who want us fighting with each other instead of looking at what they're doing. We need to keep shining a light on all of this, because people can think we're histrionic and hyperbolic all day long. We're showing them. It's Orwellian for them to say, no, that's not true. No, this is true, and they're telling us. So wake up. You and I and everybody else out there who's talking about this all the time, I think we just have to keep doing it. We just have to talk to our friends, tell them to talk to their friends, talk to our kids, tell them to talk to their kids, get off the freaking TikTok, because that's also this spreader of disinformation. And we have to keep shining a light on the truth, because it's terrifying for all of us, unless you happen to be Mike Johnson, look like Mike Johnson, and prop yourself up as a Christian white male. You'll be fine in that case. Everybody else.
What's really kind of funny too is the fact that Trump gets up onto the stage during one of his rallies, and he talks about how in Louisiana was the first state, then they did it where they're mandating the 10 Commandments to be placed in every school. And Trump makes a statement about we need to bring morals back to America. I mean, this is a guy who there's not one of the 10 Commandments that he has not violated over and over and over, right? Thou shalt not covet, thy neighbor's wife unless she's a adult film star or a great looking Playboy playmate. You know what I mean? The part that I find interesting, if we're going to use history, is it's more like, don't do as I do as I say, right? And what they do is they promote things that are completely different than who they are or what they are. Mm-hmm. So, like I said, Donald Trump has never read or knows the 10 Commandments. He hasn't followed the 10 Commandments. And if I had to draw a similarity, think about Adolf Hitler for a second, mm-hmm. who wanted to create a master race, tall, blonde hair, blue-eyed, right, physical specimens. Yet he was a short, dark-haired, dark-eyed, kind of ugly-looking man. So he wanted to create something that he's not. Mm. Maybe because he hated himself. I don't know. Maybe Donald wants to put the 10 Commandments up because he realized what a flawed human being he is. I have no clue what the hell is going on anymore. But it's interesting to me when you start making these type of comparisons that somebody would be so into putting up the 10 Commandments in every single school when they don't follow any of the 10 Commandments at all. I just find it ironic. Right. Yeah. Now, I also want to ask you this, because following the Supreme Court's ruling on immunity, Trump's legal team is now moving to overturn the Manhattan District Attorney's conviction and suggesting that his sentencing hearing next week in the case, and I'm referring to, they call it the hush money election fraud case. I don't even know why you have to throw hush money in there, right? It's more business record fraud and election fraud case. But Donald believes that as a result of this immunity decision, that the sentencing should be put on an indefinite hold. What do you think is going to happen with that? And again, I'm just asking you to speculate.
I was waiting for that yesterday because I knew the second that the Supreme Court ruled that was what they were going to say in some way, shape, or form, that somehow that was an official act because maybe he signed the checks in the White House, which is in itself just insane, right? Like he's committing the crime in the White House, and they're like, oh, well, what if we say that was an official act? You knew it was coming because they'll try for anything. I mean, obviously with the Supreme Court, they'll give him what he wants. I don't think Judge Merchan is going to be like, yeah, that sounds right. I'm going to do that. But I also think, I'm going to guess, right, that the judge will be like, well, hold on. I do have to look at this decision, right? And it's a very intricate, complicated decision. And it's what's an official act? And then, well, maybe he's going to have to look at the charges and say, were those official acts? Could they be construed as official acts? I don't know. I'm just a mom in New Jersey. I'm not a lawyer, but I'm guessing now that we've seen the accommodations the highest court in our country will make for what is and isn't an official act, and then sending that shit back down to the lower courts for them to say, well, this one is, so that they can then say, well, this one goes back up to us so we can decide. I don't know. I'm worried. I'm very worried because, it's a state case. And I don't know that they have to defer to the Supreme Court, but I'm going to guess that federal law supersedes or federal rulings supersede.
It does.
Right? So,
it does. Right. It does.
Right. So I'm going to guess that as a rational, reasonable, logical, sensible, not Republican, crazy person, that Judge Merchan is going to have to consider that. And we're going to probably hear from him on that sooner rather than later. But it's insane. It's insane. But I guess there is ground for him to have to consider that. And again, it just shows you how insidious this ruling is, this court is, and how much danger we are in, danger girl, in November and beyond, with a Donald Trump at the helm and that court, at least for now, in place. It's terrifying. It's absolutely terrifying to consider what they can do, will do. Personally, I'm terrified for you, again, physically. This is a person, as you know better than anybody, he says something, he means it. And if he says he's going to put the people who went after him in prison, he also said, by the way, he wants public executions on TV so that we can show people you don't stand up, you don't speak out against him. That's something this fucker is going to potentially do. So it's nuts, and we need to be paying attention, and everybody needs to be outraged and get over the hell over the debate performance the other night, because that's one night versus 3.5 years versus the next 4 and beyond. And focus on getting Joe Biden elected, focus on getting the House blue, keeping the Senate blue, getting real majorities in place where we can actually pass things like codifying Roe, like assault weapons ban. By the way, the Supreme Court also was like, oh, bump stocks? Yeah, those are great. We're not going to regulate guns. We're not going to let you regulate the environment. We're not going to regulate businesses. We're not going to regulate discrimination. Oh, but your uterus? Yeah. Well, we're going to kick that to the states and let them decide. This is where we are. And this is our chance as we the people. I keep saying this. We need to make our voices heard. This is it. This is our shot, or it's over. Game over.
All right. So when you say it like that, I'm still wondering, when I see on various different social media platforms or even on television, I see women standing up with a Trump t-shirt or a Trump flag and a Trump MAGA hat and saying, and saying, I'm with Trump all the way. Trump's my guy. There's never been a better president in United States history. I'm really wondering what drugs these people are taking. No, because you bring up a very valid point, which is no regulation for the EPA. There's going to be no regulation. He doesn't want to have taxes anymore. Now it's just going to be tariffs. So this pen that you could buy for $1.50, all right, with your office information on it as giveaways, will now be $50, right? And I'm not fucking around when I say that pen will be $50 because the same tariff you think you're going to put on China, more than 80% of all of the goods that we buy in this country are manufactured outside of the country. So somehow he believes by saying we need to start producing our own shit. Really? Why don't you tell me who's going to manufacture the company that makes this fucking pen? And what about the battery that's inside of it? You know where that's made too?
Yeah.
China. All right. And where are you going to get the filaments in order to make the stupid pen glow? Right. Taiwan, right? I mean, all of a sudden, so now you got tariffs on them. They have tariffs on you. People think, yeah, but I'm not going to be paying taxes. That's okay. The tariffs that you're going to be paying will be at least 500 times more than, and you'll be able to buy nothing. So if you're already locked, stocked, and barreled, you've already bought up everything that you possibly could from Costco or Walmart and so on for the rest of your lives, you're in good shape. But for the rest of us, including your children that are going to need diapers. Where do you think fucking diapers are manufactured? People bitch and scream. It's $15, $18 for a box of diapers and so on. Really?
Yeah.
Now go pay $100. Now go pay $100. Do you think maybe we're going to go back to the olden days where it was cloth and then you used to have companies that used to wash them for you and so on? I mean, I just don't understand what the younger generation are saying. I don't understand why Jews are voting oh my God, he's good for Israel. Seriously?
Yeah.
Seriously? Have you ever heard the expression, if you have a strong America, you have a strong world. If you have a weak America, you have a weak world. What do you think happens to Israel if in fact America becomes a Donald Trump type of America? Everyone's saying, oh, no, he'll be good for Israel. He'll be good for the person that gives him the most money. And who has more money than Israel?
Putin.
Saudi Arabia, the United Arab Emirates, Qatar, right? And so on. Donald Trump, as president of the United States, no different than 2016 through 2020, will be for sale. It's exactly how Jared and Ivanka ended up pulling down $640 million while they were senior advisors. It's no different than how Ivanka ended up getting a whole bunch of trademarks in China. It's no different than, Jared, 3 months after leaving the White House, got over $2 billion from the Middle East, specifically Saudi Arabia, for a fund that he has no qualifications for. My friends, I want to be so clear about this. It's no different than the way Donald Trump and his administration took money for the payment of pardons. By the way, I would have paid money for a pardon. Right. And all my friends, especially as we were all leaving Otisville and so on, they all said, you see, you should have kept your fucking mouth shut. Trump probably would have pardoned you, and for nothing. You'd be working over like at Newsmax or OAN or Fox News. You'd be making a fortune. You'd be in the inner circle. You'd be, involved in all this. Who the hell wants to be involved in the destruction of America's democracy? It's like having the last name, not Hitler, Goebbels, Himmler, right? Who the hell wants one of those last names? Right? Because you are a participant with the big guy who's trying to destroy democracy. How about thanks, but no thanks? Now, let me ask you this, because you brought this up, and it was actually a good point, and I was meaning to jump in and ask you. When you said that this decision by the Supreme Court actually gives Joe Biden right now this newfound power. So my question to you is, forgetting about the fact that he won't do it, right? Because Joe Biden is a decent man who truly loves this country and loves democracy. What do you think that President Biden should do with this newfound power? Because if he's immune, you think there may come a point, even after the election, if he loses, where he turns around and he says, in order to save this country, This is what I have to do.
I was talking to my kids about this last night, actually, because my son asked that very question. He's 14. It's like, well, why doesn't he just do whatever he wants? He can do whatever he wants. Why doesn't he just throw him in prison right now? And I said, here's what it is, Michael. It's, yeah, he's a good person. That's a big part of it, right? But he understands that he is there not for his own needs, not to decide what is or is not constitutional, what is or is not democratic, what is or is not above the law. He's there to be a steward of this democracy, to carry us through to the next person who will do the same. And if he shows the world and shows the American people that he too believes that he can, tweak the rules a little bit just because we all want him to, then he's no better than Donald Trump. He's no better than the Supreme Court that said he could do it. And he understands that this is about more than this moment in time. This is about our future as a country, as a democracy, as a free people. This is about my kids and your kids and his grandkids, that in this moment in time, he cannot choose the expedient possible thing just because it's available to him, because he knows it's wrong. And the generations from now on will be looking to this as a fulcrum moment for whether or not we stood firm in our principles or we yielded to somebody who doesn't care about anybody else anywhere ever but himself. He doesn't care about Israel. He doesn't care about, women. He doesn't care about abortion rights. He doesn't care about the military. He doesn't care about churches. He doesn't care about schools. He doesn't care about any of it. It'll all be gone. He says all the time that we're a third world nation. That's what we would be. And to your point about the tariff bullshit he tried when he was president ended up hurting us economically. Not only did that hurt us economically, he was so shitty on the economy that he grew our debt by the third largest amount of any president in our history before the pandemic because of his stupid tax cut, which, by the way, friends, that tax cut, you're going to lose any of, but the really rich people, when he's president, he's going to make that tax cut even bigger. That's the nut.
No, wait. So hold on a second. Let me just say this to you. Two things. First and foremost, there will be no rich people in America. Well, this notion that Elon Musk is going to keep his $300 billion, the fuck out of here. Let me be clear about Donald Trump. He cares about nothing or anyone other than the almighty dollar. Donald Trump on day number one, just like Mohammed bin Salman, all right? He's going to have guys like Bezos and Musk and the Waltons, and he's going to have, the families of all of these mega billionaires. He's going to have them all picked up by SEAL Team 6 and brought to Mar-a-Lago. I'm telling you right off the bat, Donald is a fucking copycat. He will do it, and he will turn around because he can get away with it. It's a presidential act. And he will say to somebody like Elon Musk exactly what MBS said to the royal family members. You have stolen this money from the United States of America, the way he said that you stole it from Saudi Arabia, that you have committed fraud against the country. And in order for me to drop the case against you, which would ultimately result in your execution, you're going to sign over X amount of dollars. Now, Mohammed bin Salman was a little generous with his royal relatives, and he let them keep a lot of their money, but he took a lot as well. Donald will take it all. So, okay, maybe he'll leave him with $1 billion. That's a shit ton of money, don't get me wrong. But he'll take the other 299, and not for the United States, not to reduce our deficit and so on, for his own pocket, just like MBS did, because Donald thought that was really cool. And he will do it to each and every one of them, right? From the Schwartzmans, to every one of these rich fuckers that think that they're going to use Donald as the useful idiot that you described. He's much smarter than they are. He's more devious. Now, let me tell you what just happened about a minute ago. Announcement just came out that As a result of Monday's Supreme Court decision on presidential immunity, the Manhattan DA agreed to delay the sentencing. Now, they only are delaying it by 2 weeks. And here's the statement by Manhattan DA Alvin Bragg. Although we believe defendant's arguments to be without merit, we do not oppose his request for leave to file and his putative request to adjourn sentencing pending determination of his motion. We respectfully request a deadline of July 24th, 2024, 2 weeks after defendant's requested deadline to file and serve a response. Let me tell you something. Anybody that thinks that this thing is going to happen, the sentencing on July 24th, you're fucking stoned. No chance. He's going to turn around and they're going to then adjourn it again, which they may have the right to do as of right. And they will continue to delay this thing as long as they possibly can. And based off what? Trump's legal team filing a letter seeking to challenge the president's conviction as a result of the Supreme Court's ruling that the president has absolute immunity from prosecution for core official acts. And like what you said at the very beginning, explain to me how this is a core presidential act. It's not. But he will use the system. He will abuse the system until there is no system.
Yeah.
And it's why we have to get out there and we have to protest like our lives depend on it, because it does. It does.
Yeah. And you know what? Michael? I have chills right now reading this because you and I were talking about it and it happened in real time, just as we both pretty much expected it would, because we've been shown that anything is freaking possible at this point. You know what the American people don't like? Whether or not you're a Republican or a Democrat or independent or you don't give a shit, they don't like it when somebody gets away with everything. When somebody gets away with everything they do, because we don't. You didn't.
I know I didn't.
Right? They wouldn't. Nobody likes it when somebody constantly shows them, I am above you. I'm better than you. I don't have to face consequences. I'm beyond reproach. And I got to tell you, we have to keep telling them. We have to keep telling people who are like, I don't know. I don't care. You should care. You should very much care in this moment, because the reality is that motherfucker is going to get to do anything and everything he wants to you, to your family, to your money, to your property, whatever it is. And because he's beyond above the law. I mean, he's literally the second coming of Jesus, like he said. And by the way, maybe he'll cancel Jesus too. Who the hell knows? He do whatever he wants. Supreme Court will be like, that's fine. Was it an official act? Okay. People need to wake up. People need to wake up. He's convicted. He's a convicted felon. A jury of his peers found him to be guilty of 34 criminal felonies. And now the motherfucking Supreme Court has thrown their shit into the mix. And now they have to be like, well, I don't know. Are you? On the other side of this, you have a guy who's never been so much as charged with, jaywalking, who just wants to do good for the American people. He wants us to have more rights, more freedom, right? More autonomy, more say in this experiment that we are perfecting all the time. That's the point, to move it forward. He wants to be a good leader for the American people. He wants to be a president, not a king. Donald Trump wants to be a king. He has no interest in governing. He just wants to rule. And we have the power right now. This is it. We have the power right now in this country to take him out, to take all of this out, and to keep moving forward till we get to 2028 when we get to do this all over again. But this is our moment, possibly our last moment, to be able to do this.
I just feel that people do not understand yet what's at stake in this election. And, my Democratic Party is just getting outplayed on every single level. The far right, the GOP, they've basically taken on all of the Democrats' talking points, and they're making it their own, saying, for example, that Democrats are the threat to democracy, that Joe Biden is a criminal, that and you can go on and on and on. They are gaslighting the public every single day by text messages, on television ads, just with their with like Fox News, OAN, Newsmax, that right-wing ecosphere. My question really to you, how do we cut through the truth? How do we cut through this with the truth?
Well, that's a challenge, right? So it's like, it is difficult because it's not just pushing through Newsmax and OAN. It's that Sinclair group that's got all that coordinated messaging about Joe Biden's age. Yeah, you're right. The Democratic Party isn't great at messaging. They're really not, because they won't lean into the punching back part as much as they should, right? You got to get dirty. We don't live in the, when they go low, we go high world anymore. No offense, I love Michelle Obama, but we don't live there anymore. We have to get in the mud, right? And we have to fight just the same way they do, but somehow still keeping our hands clean of like committing crimes. But I don't have the answer to how you get through to the people who just aren't listening, because there are some people that are so far like adrift, you can't get them back. But there's a whole bunch of people in the middle. During the debate, they had those swing voters doing the dial thing. And every time Trump spoke, they were like, oh, I don't like that. Every time Biden spoke, they were like, oh, I like that. And you have to appeal to them. You have to appeal to what you have in common, right? Because we have more in common than we don't. We have more that connects us than divides us. And right now in this country, like the antidote to all of that shit is the humanity component of who we are as people. So I think the conversations you can have with people in your school, pickup lines at the grocery store, those actually do move the needle. And they get people to be like, oh my God, wait, what did you say about your daughter's not going to school in a southern state because she can't get an abortion there? What are you talking about? And then you tell them. But like for the rest of us, I think we can use humor. We could use someone magnanimous like you out there saying, hey, look, I am who I am. I'm not perfect. But I'm going to tell you something, you guys. This shit is real and it's scary. And you need to understand. Here's Project 2025. Let me break it down in these little tiny bullet points. We can use all of the social media platforms to constantly combat disinformation. But at the end of the day, I think we have to appeal to the humanity in the American people. Maybe I'm naive. I don't know if I am. I love this country. I believe in the promise of this country. I believe in the American people. I believe that we are fundamentally better people than a lot of people think we are. I think that at the end of the day, we are good people who do not want to reward bad people with unlimited power. And I think we have to appeal to that. We have to say, look, I'm a mom. You're a mom. We don't agree on all of this stuff. Maybe you don't agree with my right to access an abortion, but let's talk about all the other things. Do you want your child to have a school to go to? Do you want people with AR-15s just walking around the streets shooting people at will? Do you want to see deportations and internment camps? Like, no, because it's your soul. You're a moral person. Well, I do believe we are a moral country. I know that sounds crazy, but we need to appeal to that component of the American people's sensibility that this isn't just about politics. This is about humanity and who we are fundamentally. And I'm going to keep screaming that. Michael, I'm going to punch harder every fucking day from now until November until I've ever punched before in my life, because we don't quit. We won't quit. That's what other people do. In this country, just like Joe said, when you get knocked down, when a bully knocks you down, you get right back up. And that's what I'm going to do. I know that's what you're going to do because you've done it. You've done it. You keep doing it. And whether or not people want to hear it, we're going to keep drilling the messages home. And we're going to also have to get some of the schmucks in our party to shut the hell up about all the nonsense they're spewing and get the hell on the damn bus. Because your choices are the bus from Speed or the slow bus with the seats that are a little matted. That's still going to get you where you need to go, but it's probably not going to explode like the other one. And we need to get all those assholes on the freaking bus.
Yep. Why they're calling already for Biden to step down over one bad debate. So what? He's a shitty debater. Meanwhile, he's a shitty debater, but Trump didn't tell the truth on anything other than acknowledging his name is Donald Trump. Right. Everything was a lie, one lie after another. Look, JoJo from Jersey, let me be very clear. You're spectacular. You got to keep yelling. We need more voices. And we need more women voices. We need more Black voices getting out there. We need more Jewish voices getting out there, turning around and saying, Forget about your pocketbooks. Forget about the economics. Oh my God, you're paying $1, $2 more per gallon of gas. Really? Seriously, that's what you're willing to trade democracy for the price of gasoline, right? Or because the eggs in the grocery are, firstly, you shouldn't be eating so many eggs anyway. It's high in cholesterol. And you know what? If you stop doing that, maybe you save money and you don't have to take Crestor or some other statin. I mean, the whole thing is so stupid at this point. But the fact that they're screaming, Joe, why do you not see Republicans, after the fucker lied about everything during that debate? Why do you not see them saying he needs to step down and let somebody else, who's younger, who's funnier, who doesn't lie as much, who doesn't have 34 criminal convictions, who doesn't owe over $500 million in civil penalties, right? I mean, come on, seriously? We're attacking our own, and yet the only one that's actually beaten him so far is Joe Biden. So, Look, Jojo, thank you for joining me on Mea Culpa. Hour goes by so quickly. Appreciate you. And let's stay in touch, because I intend on start to hit the road with maybe some help from the Biden campaign. And I think you'd just be a tremendous asset, to that conversation.
Oh, thank you, Michael. Thank you for this conversation, the opportunity. I'm really fired up right now, as you can tell. And I think we do need everybody on board. We're gonna do this. That's the other thing. I'm hopeful. I know that sounds crazy, but I am actually hopeful, and I'm not gonna lose sight of that.
No, I'm gonna try to pretend to be as hopeful as you, but appreciate you very much. Thank you, Jojo.
Thank you, Michael.